By FedEx, which guided below street expectations. There's a look at the Dow Industrials, down 63 points at 92.18. Over at NASDAQ, another.
Throughout the world today, the forces of globalization and the power and influence of global corporations are fundamentally altering the way we all live. Internationally, capitalism has triumphed, and the doctrine of free markets, minimal government, and private solutions to social problems is the established view as the only choice for countries that want to survive in a global economy. Yet despite the promises of globalization, the gap between rich and poor continues to grow, and communities and even nations are losing control of their economies. For many people, feelings of impotence and vulnerability have given way to anger and resistance. But there is already a different, creative, and positive response that needs to be more widely known. I'm Patrick Watson. As a broadcast journalist over the past 45 years, I've put quite a bit of effort into trying to keep my personal views out of my programs, or at least to import contrary views in the interests of balance and fairness and impartiality. But the program that follows asks us to consider a locally controlled form of economic democracy that seems to me capable of living side by side with today's dominant globalized capital in a way that benefits everyone. And so I've agreed this time to set aside my cautions and to contribute my narration to a story that I believe needs to be told, even though it's going to be told in a somewhat unjournalistic posture of advocacy for the movement that it portrays. The story begins in a region of northern Italy called Emilia Romagna. Here, people have combined an intense entrepreneurial spirit with the traditions of social democracy to produce one of the world's most sophisticated cooperative economies. The city of Bologna is the bustling center of this unique region. A third of the economic wealth comes from 15,000 cooperatives, which are owned and controlled by their members. Cooperatives work side by side with other forms of private enterprise and with the public sector. From the production of internationally renowned food products to the design and export of state-of-the-art machinery, co-ops have helped make Emilia-Romagna the economic powerhouse of Italy. The Emilian cooperative economy has allowed thousands of the region's small enterprises to thrive in a global marketplace, producing full employment and a standard of living among the highest in the world. Cooperation has become a way of life here. Italian co-ops took their inspiration from England, from Rochdale, where co-ops were created to relieve the desperate working conditions and mass unemployment caused by the Industrial Revolution. The cooperative movement in Italy began in the mid-1800s, when mechanization in agriculture left many farm workers destitute. The early cooperators of Italy survived by pooling their labor and sharing what work was available. But the movement for economic justice was a bitter political struggle in Italy, as it was throughout Europe. The old order opposed any change that weakened its hold on economic power. By the 1900s, cooperatives had spread to the cities, where consumers used co-ops to protect their interest in the marketplace. Today, the practice of cooperation has grown to include the production and marketing of goods made by small, privately owned firms, and to the delivery of social services. Compagnia Unica in Genoa dates back to 1324, when it started as a longshoremen's association. With a workforce of 1,700, this co-op now operates Europe's second busiest port. Throughout Italy, there are hundreds of industrial co-ops like this, which are global leaders in their fields. SACME is a worker co-op whose members direct operations in nearly a dozen countries. From its humble beginnings as a mechanics co-op in the early 1900s, SACME's 600 workers generate a multi-million-dollar business in the design and production of machinery for the ceramics industry around the world. For worker members, a job at SACME is usually a job for life. Despite the achievements of SACME and many other cooperatives, the co-op model is not without its critics. Massimo Bucci is regional president of Confindustria, representing the country's largest corporations.
The people from Emilia Romagna have a characteristics that is that they like to stay together, and they know how to stay together, and to join forces, and to join purposes. So this is a basis of the character of the people living here that has supported and helped the creation of cooperative. I can compare the efficiency of cooperative with capitalist firms. Sometimes I have to say that cooperative, for the kind of structure that they represent, have sometimes, I repeat, more difficulties in comparison with capitalist firms in putting together all the members of the cooperatives and to find a solution, to take a decision.
Di lentezza nel prendere le decisioni.
I don't agree with those who criticize the cooperative for slow decision making and poor management. If decisions are made in a prompt and timely fashion, and all members are involved on a day-to-day basis in current problems, then, when they are called to a meeting, they are ready to make a decision either way. This procedure becomes more efficient, and this results in the cooperative making decisions the way a private enterprise would in terms of speed, but with the advantage that if a decision is made by 280 people, this is the number of our members, this will be far more considered and ultimately a more sound decision.
Con molto più buon senso, insomma, diciamo in questo modo. Però anche i dipendenti sono coinvolti.
The most important thing, not only for co-ops, but also for private firms, is the involvement of the people working there. It's the same as SACME, where the workers and the people will get involved in a problem, and when they get involved, they make an effort to solve the problem, because the problem becomes their own problem, not only the co-ops.
Cooperatives are among the largest engineering and construction firms in Italy. Co-op Costruzioni is a worker co-op that plays a major role in construction and public works projects. It has been a leader in the restoration of Bologna's historic city center.
The fact is, a citizen of a modern society not only is happy to consume the usual consumer goods, they need more and more relational goods, namely the way in which that good or service is produced. When, for instance, we read in the newspaper that a certain group of or a certain organization boycotts a product of that company or another company because they happen to know that the product itself has been produced exploiting children, exploiting disabled people, or not paying enough to the workers, what do we mean? These people boycott not because the good itself does not enjoy the usual characteristics in terms of quality, but because they object to the particular way that product has been brought to the market.
The best example of consumer power in the marketplace is Italy's chain of retail co-ops. With 4 million members and 1,300 outlets, these co-ops are the country's largest distributors of food products. They provide consumers with a powerful means to influence the economy. Food safety and consumer protection are a fundamental part of the co-op's success. Food products are purchased only from environmentally secure sources, and the co-op's own brand name appears on 2,000 products that have met stringent quality and production standards. Genetically modified foods are banned. The co-op is a leader in the sale of organic products. Products like meat and dairy are traceable to individual source animals and farms. The trust between Italy's consumer co-ops and their members was evident at the height of the mad cow epidemic. While meat sales in major supermarkets plummeted by 30% overnight, the meat sales of Italy's consumer co-ops fell by only 5%. Co-ops play a vital role in the cultural life of Emilia Romagna. The regional government provides the highest per capita spending on culture in Italy, and co-ops operate a large number of the 300 theaters that thrive in the region.
I myself think that it is easier for artists to build up a cooperative that in a way meets the problems of organization that artistic institutions naturally have, but at the same time responds more to the idea of creativity than instead having a private entrepreneur that, of course, only wants money, profits, and creativity for him is a means to an end of enrichment and not an end in itself. So I really think that the cooperative form is more near to the idea of creativity that is connected with art and is more respectful of the creativity than is private organization.
The cooperative model also plays a crucial role in a powerful small firm economy, which uses cooperation to help private entrepreneurs penetrate global markets. Here in the town of Poggibonsi, over 200 furniture makers export 80% of the products they make, mostly to U.S. markets. These craftsmen and women collaborate on everything from furniture design and production to marketing. And, like the region's cooperatives, small private firms have been aided by government policies that encourage cooperation.
Well, actually, this is what the Emilians have done, is that the history of Emilia is transposing the kind of farming model over into the light industrial model. If you trace the history of these, many of these people have had their roots in that basis and in the food industry. They come directly from it. So that the idea of saying that Emilia is a private enterprise economy, that is what it is, just as a farming area is. And I think is one of its secrets, because you don't have the wrangles that you have in some co-ops, some industrial co-ops about, some people wanting to lead and the marketing people wanting to be paid 3 times as much and all that type of thing. That is organized, if you like, within the structure of the 4 small firm and the 4 small family firm. They've got that cell organized in that way. But what the difference is that because they remain, for the most part, small and medium firms, they have developed cooperative structures as we would recognize them amongst themselves. And that, for those of us in Britain, when we first met the Italian thing, that widened the concept of co-ops, and I think made it very, very relevant to the modern age. What was fascinating is in the food industry, because there you had cooperative retail being extremely strong. You had the political forces, as it were, in local power. They made sure that big international retail chains could not get planning permission to go into their towns, i.e. their own co-ops maintained control of retail. That meant that the farmer cooperatives always had a secure outlet.
In the town of Carpi, just outside Bologna, Essa Industries shows how small high-tech firms can compete on a global stage.
Today, these small companies have a future only if they learn to work together. Networking is very important for small firms because in this way they can specialize on a particular product. In this way, we can do our job best, of course, by putting together our knowledge, which has increased with time, and our skills together with our networking partners. Then we are more useful to our customers, and this becomes a winning concept and helps us compete in a global market.
The success of the Emilian model is evident in the shop windows of the world's most exclusive stores. The co-ops and small firms of Emilia Romagna show how small regions can use the cooperative model to compete successfully in a modern market economy.
The advantage of a cooperative firm vis-à-vis a typical capitalistic firm is threefold. First, that in a cooperative firm, because the mutuality principle implies the million rule according to which one head, one vote, people, members of the cooperatives are incentivized to exhibit the best effort. We should never forget that in capitalistic firm, in order to avoid free riding and shirking, the management have to spend a tremendous amount of money in terms of monitoring, in terms of counseling, in terms of introducing penalties, and all this represents an addition to the cost of production. The second comparative advantage has to do with the fact that the cooperative firm does not exist by itself, but it's part of a network. A capitalistic firm, in order to enjoy some benefits from another capitalistic firm, they have to sign up a special agreement, which is costly in terms of cost of transactions, etc., etc. That is not the case of a cooperative firm, because being part of a network, they can sign up what are called relational contracts. The third comparative advantage has to do with what I said a few minutes ago, namely that a cooperative firm is capable to interpret the new needs of the new consumers. A consumer knows that the product coming out from a cooperative firm, it's a product where the production process does not exploit anybody.
Canada's early co-ops were inspired by the success of the co-op movement in Britain. Their ideals were forged by British immigrant workers who brought their co-op experience with them to Canada. In Nova Scotia, a priest named Moses Cody taught the co-op model to fishermen and fish plant workers. In 1900, the credit union movement took root in Quebec, led by Alphonse Desjardins. Like the wheat pools in the West, all these initiatives transformed both the economy and community life. Today, there are over 10,000 cooperatives in Canada, with 18 million members and assets worth $170 billion.
Thank you for calling Coast Capital Savings.
Canada is a world leader in the use of co-ops for financial services. In BC alone, 1 in 3 people belongs to a credit union.
How's it going? Yes. Need a withdrawal.
Credit unions like Coast Capital Savings are pioneers in the movement to maintain control of capital for the benefit of local communities. Van City is Canada's largest credit union and has earned its reputation as a progressive and innovative financial institution by matching its social goals with its economic performance.
Welcome to the 56th Annual General Meeting of Vancouver City Savings Credit Union. My name is Greg McDade.
Born in the 1940s, Vancouver City Savings gave the city's poorest neighborhoods access to credit for the first time. Van City was the first financial institution to offer members medical insurance and to make loans to women without the written consent of their husbands. Today, 30% of Van City's profits are returned to members and the local community. In contrast, the major banks return less than 1% to the community. With 1.6 million members, Mountain Equipment Co-op is a well-known consumer co-op and a national leader in ethical retailing. In addition to careful sourcing of its products to ensure the proper treatment of workers, a portion of the co-op's revenues is allocated to environmental protection. And while the clothing and sports equipment industry has been criticized for using offshore sweatshop labor, Mountain Equipment Co-op is an example of how Canadian consumers are using co-ops to promote their values in the marketplace. But the use of the co-op model has yet to reach other vital areas of Canada's economy. Many communities lack control over the use of natural resources that are the lifeblood of their economies. Annually, BC's forests generate millions of dollars in profits to 10 companies which control over half of the province's allowable cut. The control of this vital resource by a handful of corporations has meant that local sawmills and artisans and small wood producers have almost no access to Canada's largest forests. It has also meant that industrial logging practices, large volume exports of raw timber, and clear cutting have devastated large swaths of BC's forests. By contrast, the Eco Lumber Co-op is pioneering a new approach that uses sustainable logging practices that preserve ancient forests for future generations. The co-op is providing an innovative solution for meeting consumer demands for wood products while protecting the environment and strengthening local economies. The co-op will sell only products that have been harvested according to strict environmental standards and certified by the Forest Stewardship Council. The FSC label guarantees that the product comes from a well-managed forest, and in turn allows consumers to make a choice to buy ecologically and socially responsible forest products. The co-op also works with small-scale community forests that are committed to environmentally responsible logging practices. Like organic agriculture, ecoforestry is at the leading edge of a new attitude that reconciles enterprise with broader environmental and social values. These and hundreds of other examples across Canada point to a revival of cooperatives as an alternative to corporate models of doing business. The blend of craftsmanship, small-scale production, local control, and regional cooperation is a new strategy for Canada's regional economies. More importantly, there is a growing thirst among all classes of Canadians for a new set of values which can humanize our economy and still build prosperity alongside the apparently irreversible growth of globalization.
I totally disagree about the opinion that a cooperative could be more democrat than a capitalist firm or more just, socially wise than a capitalist firm. If a cooperatives lose money and is not efficient, and a capitalist firms that have employees and pay salaries, pays good salaries to the people. So this is, again, is a company that is not socially just or is less democrat than a cooperatives. I don't think that we can say the right, the good part is one side and the worst part is the other side.
It's true that the private sector generates significant benefits. None of us can argue that. But I think what they've found in Bologna is that there's an alternative way of achieving the same commercial ends, but providing greater involvement and productivity from the workers and a kind of the creation of a climate of reciprocity in the community. And it's a marvelous mix that makes an enormous difference, benefits all of the private sector players and benefits the community dramatically. It's a very different answer than the giant, multinational, modern, international corporation. And it shows in the community form and the community benefits. This is one of the richest regions in Europe. They've got there by cooperating and competing. And the Europeans now see it as the model for underdeveloped parts of Europe. That tells you almost everything in terms of what they've achieved.
Critics of globalization of capital and its challenge to local economies have always argued that it is essentially destructive, while corporate leaders and government leaders have said that it's essential for growth and prosperity. For a while, the political and economic left tried to persuade us that only public ownership of big elements of the economy could counteract the negative effects of globalization, but people don't trust big bureaucracies, and we didn't buy into this. So it could be that the co-op movement, resolutely committed to market forces and built on entrepreneurial values, is a harmonious and balanced approach, a constructive thing that sustains global enterprise by giving people everywhere more buying power, and at the same time giving those global customers a voice in the marketplace, and reviving a sense of community and common purpose that the prevailing values of self-gratification and consumerism have virtually killed. Over the last 20 years, a profound change has taken place in the relationship between citizens and their governments. In the Western democracies, this change has fundamentally altered the role of government as the provider of social care and public welfare. Everywhere, it seems, governments are retreating from the provision of social services. This retreat has not been one without a fight. People have often reacted with anger and resistance when social programs that took generations to establish are dismantled. But the social needs that gave rise to these programs are still with us. While the gap between rich and poor is increasing, help for the weakest and most needy of our citizens is on the decline. Record numbers remain homeless. Health services are being eliminated, and those struggling with disabilities are left without hope or help. The retreat of government from public services is often coupled with a policy of privatization. This approach is justified by the argument that private sector alternatives are more efficient and cost less. Over the last few decades, changes in the role of government, both in Canada and internationally, have pretty well destroyed the concept of the welfare state that we've been living with since the Second World War. But a new approach has arisen that affirms the role of the public sector, while at the same time relying on the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship that come out of the application of cooperative models for the delivery of social services. This documentary takes a look at how social services directed and controlled by the people who need them and use them offers a real alternative to the welfare state on the one hand and the privatization of social care on the other. Pioneered in Italy, social co-ops are becoming the fastest growing sector in the co-op movement in the industrialized world. Like all cooperatives, a social co-op is owned and controlled by its members. What social co-ops have in common is a mandate to serve the community, in particular those who are vulnerable or marginalized from the mainstreams of community life. Today, 6,000 social co-ops employ 50,000 people and provide a broad range of services to the Italian public. Social co-ops account for 17% of Italy's expenditures on social services. In the city of Bologna, 85% of social services are delivered by social co-ops under contract to the city. Among Europe's most powerful examples of a social co-op is the drug recovery community of San Patrignano. Located in the hills overlooking the Adriatic coast, San Patrignano was established in 1976 as a place where addicts could overcome their drug dependence and rebuild their lives through a combination of peer support, communal living, and skills training. Today, over 2,000 recovering drug addicts live and work in San Patrignano. Carlo Bozzo is communications director for the community and is one of its many success stories.
Who works in a social corps put at the top of his aims the solidarity and the relationship with the other people. In this way, also the structure of the corps is different. It's different because the most important thing is to reach the mission, the goal of the corps, to give help to other people. And the products are important because they provide to reach this goal.
The community of San Patrignano is wholly self-sufficient, with most of its revenue earned from the sale of the products made by the residents. The training here is therapeutic and transformative. Products are of the highest quality and command high prices. Hand-printed wallpaper is sold at $80 a meter. The state-of-the-art printing plant is Italy's second largest and serves customers across Europe. Each worker at San Patrignano is associated with one of 60 workshops that produce the goods and services which earn revenue for the community. Workers are the members and owners of these enterprises. The co-op model promotes the highest level of commitment to the quality of these goods. It is also an indispensable part of the recovery process.
The significance of artisan training in San Patrignano is very important. And in the artisanal training, the people see the guys can do a lot of beautiful things, and it's very important. A drug addict needs to see that himself is able to do something with his creativity, with his responsibility, and with his dignity of human being.
For the doctors, there are 3 doctors living in the community, like me. We are all former drug addicts. I came here about 20 years ago and I started studying in this place, like me, the other 2 doctors. So if a patient, I call patients, but it's not the right word to define, see the doctor that 20 years ago was a former drug user, is a different relationship, is direct relationship. I don't consider the patient a patient. I consider him like me 20 years ago.
I think it's very important for the guest of San Patrignano to know that San Patrignano is a social coop. Because in this short social coop there are a lot of people which have been a drug addict. These people who's been like you. And This kind of structure is a structure that's born from some principles of solidarity, from the principle of the help to the other. This one is not an industry. San Patrignano is a social co-op. It's a place where a lot of people together live, where a lot of people together, come si dice affronta la vita?
Overcome.
Where a lot of people overcome the troubles of the life. And this is the message that which San Patrignano offers to all the guests of the community.
Alberto Alberani has been a pioneer in the development of social co-ops for the disabled and is now political director for Italy's largest cooperative federation.
E che può essere una possibilità di terza via.
I believe that the social cooperative model represents a third way of delivering social services, as described by theoreticians like Anthony Giddens. Between public administration and private enterprise, there exists the alternative where people are protagonists and owners of the services they receive. It is increasingly difficult, however, for this to be realized today. But what is important is that with the co-op model, it can be done. It is possible.
È possibile.
CADII is Italy's largest social co-op, owned and operated by 500 health professionals, social workers, and adult educators. Established in the 1980s to care for seniors and the disabled, it also operates nursing homes and long-term care facilities.
The cooperatives are in a much better position to deliver services in the best possible way, because in a way they have selected the work that they do, and they also select how to do the work, not only the kind of work they do, but how to do it. And therefore they will put in the work that they do. And we see very often this, when we meet these people in cooperatives, they will put all the passion that they have, And in services, this is absolutely fundamental. Just an example, if you are in hospital, it's not only important that the physician will treat you correctly, but will also treat you humanely, in a human way. This is not always the case, with bureaucracy. But in general, instead, in the co-ops, this is an important aspect of how they deliver the services.
In the city of Ravenna, Il Cerchio is a consortium of 4 social co-ops that provides services to severely handicapped adults. In addition to a permanent residence facility, the center provides medical care, occupational training, and counseling. This type of social co-op combines skills training with social care.
The interest of every worker to maintain high quality. This is, for me, the main theory about competition between social cooperatives and the private sector. Mainly the workers of the social cooperatives are educators. They come from the educational field. They don't come from the managing field. This could be a problem for us if you compare social cooperatives with the private sector, because we use a lot of time in educational activities. For example, if you have to build this box just in a normal wood laboratory, you just look at this box. You don't waste time in taking care of personal problems. And we still have to find a sort of balance between paying our attention to social problems and to the economical result. So this could be an handicap for us. Now it's finished creating services just because the public bodies have ideas and resources. Now there are no more resources. So if you want to ask the families and the citizens' resources, we have to create services they want, not just one service for everybody. We have to create different services, even in the same town. Probably in this quarter they need services for handicap. On the seaside they need different services for families coming during the holidays. So this sort of universality of services is not working now. This was the original idea. And we, as being enterprises, social enterprises, we have to diversificate our clients. We can't keep having just one client, the public bodies, because they are little by little retiring. They asked us to create new services with them, but not only with them, with the families and the productive forces of this territory, but asking directly them what they want.
Now, why then a cooperative firm has an advantage? Just because a cooperative, not being a profit-maximizing firm, has no interest, so to speak, to exploit and to cheat the person. That is not the case with the capitalistic firms. A capitalistic firm, in order to maximize, can, for instance, in order to reduce the cost of provision of a certain service, is always liable to cheat, where cheating means not offering the best type of service. So this is the first advantage. The second advantage has to do with the consideration that in the social services, consider, for instance, education, health, assistance, etc., etc., it is obvious that the possibility of making profits is not always guaranteed. So if I am a profit maximizer and I perceive that in that particular sector there is no room or no scope to do good business, I will never enter that sector. The very moment the firm perceives that the profit goes to zero, the firm will disappear, irrespective of the needs of the population waiting for that particular service.
Noi crediamo che nel futuro avremo sempre più una funzione politica.
We believe that in the future we will have an increasingly political function, a function of vigilance over the state and the bureaucracy. We will ensure that the state will not back off from its responsibilities, because if everything is left to economic liberalism, to free enterprise, to competition, and as we fear it will, we will have a society which will create disparity and inequality. Today, it is still possible to create societies and enterprises that are democratically controlled and support the interests of their users and their workers. This is a very important challenge we are facing, yet it is a challenge we will live up to.
New York City is about as far removed from the social sensibilities of northern Italy as one is likely to find. And yet here in the South Bronx, the co-op model has been adapted to serve some of the most vulnerable people in this tough city neighborhood.
I've never worked for anybody but cooperative. As a matter of fact, I don't tell people my personal business, but before I started working for cooperative, I was on welfare for a great many number of years. And this enabled me to be
self-sufficient.
Yes, and to provide some of the things for my children that I was otherwise dependent on a little check that wasn't going to be good until the next day, and I owed this person, and they gave me a chance, you know, and I just was ready. It was just my time. I also joined. It took me a while to feel them out, and because, you know, we're worker owners. And I'm not going to invest my own. Crazy. But eventually I did it. And it's been just wonderful. It's nice. And just to say, you know, I own a part of something. I'm a part of a bigger picture, you know. It's nice. It's a wonderful feeling.
Cooperative Home Care, good afternoon.
Cooperative Home Care Associates was established as an employment program for welfare recipients and now has 600 worker members whose parenting skills are put to work helping those who can't help themselves.
Aquí también damos tissue.
The original motivation for starting cooperative home care was an economic development strategy. It's primarily a way to create good jobs in low-income communities, to provide easier access for workers to better jobs, and to structure the company in a way that would ensure those good jobs would stay within those communities. The co-op model was selected for a number of reasons. The first was that it allowed workers to fully participate in the design of their work, in the development and the running of the company. It ensured that our caregivers, our paraprofessional aides, stayed central to what the business was. But primarily as a legal structure, we structured it as a cooperative because we, as the founders, knew that if we left, we could certainly ensure that it would stay a worker cooperative, even if none of us were there 15 years, 20 years hence.
I came to CHCA one day. I came in, I got the interview. I love working with people, so I said, this is the job for me. I did the training. I did my 4 weeks. I was really, really happy to be here, knowing that after the 4 weeks, I was gonna have a job. That was the best thing. I says, well, this is it. I'm really working out for my own. I don't have to go out there, because sometimes you would try your best in these places and they would humiliate you and make you feel downgraded. But my life has changed tremendously ever since I've been at CHCA.
No, hacia adentro. Esta mano hacia adentro.
Being an owner, it makes you feel a sense of warmth, and a company that makes you feel like you're somebody. So it helps. It helps to want to change and to do the best you can, to do the best job you can.
Mm-hmm. The particular advantages of the cooperative in a low-wage sector like daycare or healthcare cooperatives is that it allows us to maximize wages and benefits for our workers, because obviously our shareholders are our workers. It also, if we're able to expand, it also will allow for us to advocate for changes in policies that reimburse healthcare and daycare, and to also advocate for regulatory changes or industry changes if we are successful in expanding the number of daycare or healthcare co-ops. And that is primarily, it's a service in terms of the human service side of the work that we're doing. David, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Take care.
Bye, Lucky. That's what I do every night.
It's all right. It's all right.
It's not only on the hard streets of the Bronx where the idea of social co-ops has made a difference. In the heartland of conservative Ontario, Kingston is creating new solutions to the problems of social exclusion faced by people with developmental disabilities. The Kingston Association for Community Living has been a leader in the training and employment of these people.
We considered the co-op model basically because in the early 90s, we as an association, through a study that we did of members and participants, decided that we had to do something very different with the workshop, whether that was close it or to look at developing a model that better served the folks that we supported. The model has had on the work itself or the productivity of the people. And I'll give you an example of that. When we were in the workshop, we had 55 people. We had 5 or 6 vocational staff. And our work comes in measurable tubs of work. We were able to produce 25 tubs a day on an average. We now have, on a daily basis, about 30 disabled owners. We have 4 managers, and once in a while we have a couple of casual people come in, and we produce between 50 and 60 of those tubs a day, every day. So our productivity has more than doubled on a regular basis. And if you look at the actual number of people participating in the work that we're doing, it's far more than doubled, and we've been able to maintain that.
Other jobs that I had, that sometimes it would last, it was on different contract basis that I was there, allowed to be there, or just sometimes I'd be there for maybe a good 3 or 4 years and then they didn't need me anymore. But with this job here, it gives me good feeling to get up in the morning just to get to work and just to be here at this place. The atmosphere is just tremendous. I really enjoyed my work. And we are our own boss, and we own the company, and we also hire some staff to help us out.
Once people start making decisions, they continually want to make more decisions and want to participate at a greater level than they ever have before. And that even after 6 years, we constantly see that people take for granted now that decisions are going to be made by them and not for them.
And what I like very much about cooperative is that it empowers people. If you simply work with government programs or even with nonprofit organizations, you don't see those type of action building power in people. Cooperatives do essentially that.
And I was feeling downgraded and different. My life was different, but it has made a big change. And I think that being here at CHCA has made that difference in me. And there was so much in me that I didn't know I had.
The sense of empowerment that cooperatives offer to people can be profound, whether it's women struggling for economic independence or addicts seeking freedom from a life of drug dependence. Social co-ops have the potential to revolutionize social care as we know it.
Thank you for everything.
San Patrignano give me one thing very, very important. It gave me a chance when no one else gave me a possibility to end my problems. San Patrignano gave me his hand when I've been in a jail, and no one else wants help me. It's been the first step, but the most important step in my life.
Mm-hmm.